So today we're going to focus on the structure and function of interest groups. We've been talking the last 2 days about political parties and how it is that political parties perform that linkage function in our country, how it is that they connect individuals to the government and they allow us to help to shape that policy agenda. Interest groups are also another linkage institution, and in contrast with political parties, participation in interest groups is significantly on the rise. If you think about what we learned about last time, that in the 1960s, that's when we started to see like a decline in party loyalty. Because of the changes to the primary and caucus system, we saw a change in like the power of the party to nominate candidates. So the thing is, it's not that people have become less interested in politics, they've just become differently interested in politics. So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of compare interest groups and political parties. Parties are more broad, generally speaking. Interest groups are far more narrow. Interest groups are more topic-based, typically. Interest groups tend to be more ideological, where they can take more extreme positions because they're not trying to get half plus one of the population to support them. But the primary difference between interest groups and political parties is the tools that they use. When we looked at political parties, we said that political parties are a group of similarly minded individuals that want to shape public policy by winning elections. So how are interest groups different? They just don't try to win elections. You're never going to see a ballot where you have an NRA candidate. You're not going to see a ballot where you have a Mothers Against Drunk Driving candidate. They do support candidates, absolutely. They campaign for them. They donate money to them through their PACs. They openly advocate for them. Every year, if you look up here at the top of the screen, it says Sierra Club. My husband belongs to the Sierra Club. And every year around election time, I notice we'll get a little postcard at our house, and it will say, it'll give you a list of candidates, and it will say the Sierra Club asks you to support these candidates. So they certainly care, but the thing is, interest groups are more about what comes next. Once we've had the election and we've got people into office, what are we going to do to try to shape this country? So one of the things that's so important about interest groups is this concept right here. It has a couple of different names. It's called iron triangles. Some people refer to it as sub-governments. You may hear people also refer to it as an issue network. All of those things are appropriate and you can use interchangeably. The most common would be iron triangles though. And so what I want to do is I'm going to walk you through this practice and make sure you understand it. This is one of those like fundamental, gotta know it AP government concepts. Okay, so when you look up here on your screen, the one thing you'll notice is that you have 3 players. You have interest groups, you have Congress, or the legislative branch, and then you have bureaucracy. And remember, those are the people in the executive branch that are charged with enforcing the law. So it's not the president and the vice president, but it's someone that works for EPA. It is the director of the FBI. It is someone that works at the Social Security Administration. So the key to an iron triangle is that you have 3 kind of parts. You got 2 parts of the government, and then you have one linkage institution that all are similarly minded. They all generally care about the same area of policy, and they have special tools and special ways that they can directly support one another and help one another to get what they want. So all we're going to do is we're just going to kind of walk through these arrows and make sure you understand. So an interest group. Well, one of the things that an interest group, a tool that they have, is that they have a large membership. Well, they have a membership. It could be large, it could be small. They can use that membership to try to help members of Congress get elected or get reelected. So if we come down here and let's say the American Medical Association, if that's our interest group, if there is a member of Congress that they really want to get elected, then what they can do is they can try to challenge their members and support their members to get that person elected. They could even donate money to their campaign, right, through their PAC. In doing that, what they're hoping for is this idea of friendly legislation and oversight. You have to be careful. I know that this sounds a lot like bribes, but it's not. It's buying access. It's securing access. So if the American Medical Association gets Senator Smith gets elected, then they can pick up the phone when a piece of legislation comes along that they really care about. They can contact Senator Smith and say, hey, remember us. We were one of your donors. We were one of your supporters. Can we have a moment of your time? And so the reality is that because they may have been a large donor or they may have large support, the congressman or the senator is going to feel compelled to give them an audience, to give them some time, and potentially even work to enact legislation that the American Medical Association may have even written. Okay. All right, let's look at interest groups in relationship to bureaucracy. So this one is a little bit different, right? Because remember, bureaucrats are not getting elected. They're not accepting campaign contributions. Bureaucrats are people who are charged with enforcing the law. Well, just like everybody out there, Congress is going to write that law and the bureaucrat has to enforce it. But the way that law is written, it can be written in such a way that the bureaucrat has some leeway in terms of how they enforce the law. So interest groups will do what they can to support the bureaucracy. They can support them with information. They can indirectly support them through Congress and try to get Congress to pass laws that a bureaucrat might really like. But they definitely become a huge information source. Bureaucrats are going to they are going to rely sometimes on interest groups to become policy experts, to really understand and have specific information that they need. So in return, interest groups are hoping that when the bureaucracy implements that law, that they implement that law in the way that the interest group wants. So, if we give an example, if you think about in the context of school, sometimes rules that we have in school are hard and fast. So I, as a teacher, it's a very black and white kind of rule. And if I, as a bureaucrat, am going to have respect for that rule, I don't have a lot of wiggle room. But sometimes those rules are a little bit more general. Sometimes they allow for teacher discretion. So if you think about it from that perspective, think about yourself over here. Sometimes you're wanting special favors or you're wanting low regulation, right? So you're wanting me to think about that policy in a way that is favorable to you. Well, laws can work the same way. And so bureaucrats sometimes have a little bit of wiggle room. In fact, Congress sometimes actually crafts those laws in a very loose kind of way to allow bureaucrats to have that kind of wiggle room. So that's going to bring me up to this exchange here. What about the relationship between Congress and a bureaucracy? Typically, we're focusing not on the Congress as a whole, but on a portion of the Congress. So if this was the American Medical Association, then we would take a committee in the House or a committee in the Senate that is charged with crafting legislation that the American Medical Association would particularly be interested in. So one of the things that Congress does, and we'll learn about this later in the next unit, Congress writes the budget. Congress holds the purse strings. Bureaucrats are absolutely accountable to Congress in terms of they want funding. If the government is going to be functioning, if it's going to run, Congress has to allocate money. So clearly, as a bureaucrat, you got to suck up to the right part of Congress, right? You need their support in order to be able to get that. You also want to have not just enough funding to turn the lights on, but you want funding for particular programs. So again, it's very much the same. If you think about me here, in relationship to funding that I might need for the social studies department, I have to try to figure out a way to impress the people who hold the purse strings to give me money for something. Well, in return, what am I going to do? Hopefully, I'm going to execute the law. I'm going to carry out those policies the way the people who hold the purse strings want it to be executed. So if, let's say that Congress allocates money for protecting a particular portion of land, right? Well, they don't really say specifically how to do that. They might have in their minds how they want it done, but they might not be real specific. So the idea is a bureaucrat's look, give me that money tell me what you want, and I'll work to do that the way you want, so long as you give me the money for what I want. So in all of this situation, it's the idea that each of these components have a way to help one another. Each of these components have a way to support one another. And the reason we refer to it as an iron triangle is that it's very difficult for somebody who's not a player in this relationship to penetrate that, to like break through. So if I, as a constituent, really care about something like a debate or something that's going on, I am probably not going to have as much influence over these players as they are collectively. If I want to influence this process, I got to become a member of that interest group. I need to donate money to them. Simply picking up the phone and calling a member of Congress and going, hey, I voted for you, is not as powerful as the interest group doing that. So again, this kind of goes back to our idea of pluralism, right? When we think about those theories of democracy, this is great, great evidence for that. All right, so we will continue to talk about this. So remember our three names: iron triangles, sub-governments, or potentially issue networks, but that's not a term I will use, but you might see that pop up somewhere. Okay, so a couple things I want you guys to talk there about your table. Who might be of concern? Like, what might be of concern in this practice? Why might this kind of like, just cause us to question a little bit, or to, I don't know, kind of question the impact that this might potentially be having on the policymaking process? But I also want you to think about what's beneficial here, because there is some benefit here. There is something positive that can come out of it. Whoops, sorry. So why don't you guys take about 3 to 4 minutes there at your table and just talk about that. And then if you have something you'd like to share with the whole class, you'll have an opportunity to do that.